first question with Karen right here.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
So acting is a profession, just like being an architect or shipwright or whatever. What do you think most non-actors don't understand about the professional aspects of acting?
Oh, yeah, where do we start? All right. How much time you have to wait in between takes? Like how much, most of the time that you spend on a set, except for Carmilla, because we shoot so much in one day. If you're on any like regular TV series, you're waiting in your trailer or your green room or wherever you are for most of the day and not actually filming for that much of the day. For a lot of times, especially if you're like not the lead on the show, you're spending a lot of time waiting around, which can be really hard because you're trying to like keep the juices up.
And I think some folks who don't work in film don't realize just how many people it takes to make something and how much money it costs to make something. So how it really takes a village, and how as an actor there's so much that's actually out of your control. So I find with film and TV acting, you know, when we were talking about this earlier, there is so much out of your control. So you could have a take where you felt really emotionally connected and really great, but maybe they don't select that later in editing. And you know, that's I think the difference for me is, you know, having done theater and coming from theater and moving to film and TV. When you're doing theater, it's like, you know, there is a director and there's lighting and there's everything, but once you're out there, it's you and it is on you. Whereas with film, so much can be manipulated, I think as well. And yeah, I think, but it's I think so often it's like actors sort of like take the brunt of things because we are the faces of things. So it's really easy to dismiss someone as a bad actor when it actually could be like, maybe the director made them really uncomfortable and then also they chose a bad take, or, you know, it wasn't a welcoming set or environment, or, yeah, I think, so that's mine for me. And then also like on the production side of things, like how many people are involved in decision making as well. So how, you know, every project has executive producers who don't necessarily creatively work on a project, but they're ultimately the gatekeepers as well. And like the money as well is crazy. Like, especially as we've all started to work behind the camera, you see just how much everything costs. Because, you know, every person who works on that set has to eat. You have to give them lunch. You have to pay them fair wages. Damn. Yeah, so I think it's, yeah, those are a few things.
Next question?
I think.
Go
No, that's fine. No, well, I was just gonna say that I think we see the actors that we see as audiences are working actors. They're not actors that are auditioning and not getting the role. So just the ratio of the amount of work actors spend participating in their craft on a daily basis and not making it into those roles is completely disproportionate to then what we see. So for every singular actor you see waltzing across your screen, there are tens of thousands of extraordinarily talented individuals who practice their craft every single day and haven't necessarily made it into those roles. So that's a big one. And then sometimes I do feel that there's sort of this, I guess it depends on what kind of content you're looking at, but this stigma about actors sort of showing up, coffee in hand, stand on your mark, you get your face painted for yourself and off to the races. But I think in its most beautiful form, it's like a incredibly vulnerable practice, which, yeah, can create absolute magic. But a lot of people don't realize that. And sort of how scary and brave engaging with that practice can be.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my question's for you, Annie, just sort of about how was your role challenging? Because of course you had to interchange, especially in the latter seasons, which was very entertaining, of course, for the audience. But what was challenging and fun about it for you, and which one did you end up preferring?
Oh, I don't know if I can answer which one I preferred, but honestly, I think the gift in that and the ease was that those two characters, the Dean versus Perry, were so drastically different. The most challenging aspect for me would have been in the second season when I was playing Perry, who was beginning to show signs of possession, and that's sort of a gray area. There's a much subtler line between the two. But between like full-on Deanie Dean and Lola. Like, they're so different, and it was such a joy to play. It was so fun. So that just the extreme, and the writers gave me a great gift in just really creating very, very different character voices. So half my work really was done for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Could you, from the top of your mind, say the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you what is the one thing that content creators and the entertainment industry should do to improve queer representation in media?
Listen to the community listen to the queer community, and hire writers who are queer as well, who are part of that community. Because if you're, and not to say that straight people can't write roles for queer people, I don't think that's the case. But if you do that, then you have to, confer with people who are from the community. And I think that's a really important step, is that if we're going to start telling different stories, then we need to have a diverse writing room that's going to be able to tell those stories accurately.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
think I could add.
I can't add.
All right, next question.
I'll go for it. Also, this is really surreal that you're all here first. But my question is, we do a lot of work to get rid of stereotypes. So for me, femi, queer, people oh, you can't be gay or whatever. So have you ever faced that in the entertainment industry? Have you ever come across stereotypes or in your personal lives?
Mm-hmm. When do we not?
Well,
stereotypes.
Yeah.
All the time. It's constant.
It's
I mean, I think it's so funny. Even when I started doing more comedy, or when I did Clairvoyant, a question that we got asked a lot in interviews was, "Oh, is it weird working outside of your comfort zone?" And Annie would just cackle because she was like, "Do you know Natasha? Have you met her?" Or was it weird doing comedy? Because, and I don't know if it's because I have dark hair and sharp features that people really assumed that I was very much this Carmilla type, which there are so many elements of my personality in her, absolutely. But yeah, I think we face it all the time, that often, especially with female characters, they're often, even if whether they're straight or queer, they're often very two-dimensional, and women are there to support the men. And it's, I think we've all been really lucky with Carmilla to have characters that actually have agency and are doing things. And I think one thing as well is once you sort of play queer, what I find is that, at least for me personally, I almost never get auditions for straight roles anymore, which is really interesting to me, because in my day-to-day life I have a lot of straight passing privilege, so that's interesting to me. Yeah.
I would say, I think that, everything comes down to stereotyping people, and we do it on a day-to-day basis. I mean, think about Tinder, literally a 0.2 second judgment that. Yeah. And I think I definitely felt that in Carmilla, for sure. I felt very pinned down into a specific thing. But something that I'm playing with right now is that I think it's perhaps the conflicting nature of something is what makes it really interesting. And the fact that, because I'm petite, the fact that I box seems really weird to people. And so, that's what's interesting to me, is that I look a very specific way, but then I have this other energy within me, and that's interesting. And I kept on thinking for a long time that I had to be my face. My face is a very specific thing, and so I thought that I had to act the way that my face looks to people. But maybe it's interesting if I'm not what my face looks like.
Right, like when people find out one of my hobbies, knitting, they're like, stereotyping's just a really weird, definitely not out of the woods in our industry on that one. I think the best that I can offer is that on my side of things as a creator, when I am creating roles, is incorporating layered human lives and making sure that that exists across the board. And then also, just on a very simplistic level, breakdowns go out to actors, and they're always required to literally dwindle it down into 3 words off the top that's going to encapsulate this complex human life. And that's not helpful. to us on the receiving end. So it's sort of countering that kind of mentality towards the whole thing, I think.
Thank you.
We had a question in the back.
Yeah. So people are very excited and thankful to meet you at those cons, but I was wondering what's for you, what do you take with you from the cons, possibly?
To me, one of my favorite things to hear is the friendships that people make through shows like ours. And you know, I've already met people today who said that they were friends for 5 years through online. They'd had you know, they'd met like FaceTimed and things, but they'd never met in person until today. And I just think that's so wonderful that a show can connect people across the world and connect people in a really deep friendship way without ever having met the person, and actually have the opportunity to have a meeting point to see each other in real time for the first time. I think that's pretty awesome. And also just to feel that we are all connected all throughout the world. It can feel like a very insular, lonely life sometimes, and when you come to a convention where it's a group atmosphere and where everyone has a common interest and a common aim in life, it can really feel as though, oh, my tethers are going out to other people and they're always connected to people no matter how far away they are. That's nice.
Yeah, so much of what you said is how I feel as well. And even like beyond friendships, we've seen people end up with their partners, their life partners from our show, and that's just such a beautiful thing, because so often, you know, we just see people through screens and we see our Twitter following go up and we see the numbers, but we don't actually get to put faces. And so I really like the opportunity to get to know who is watching our work more and to actually have conversations with them for, you know, more than 10 seconds or and I think just feeling the energy and the positive energy in the room, it's so palpable. Like as soon as we walk out onto stage, there's nothing like that feeling, because the room is just filled with so much love. And I definitely feel that when I leave the convention and city.
Yeah, I really couldn't put it more eloquently than.
Also, this is your first one.
and this is my first one. Yeah.
Hey.
All right, one final question.
Don't know if it's a good final question, but I was just wondering, because I went to a lot of film festivals and you get to meet people as well through Q&As and stuff. But lately, with social media and conventions, you get more opportunities. Do you think that helps in any way to get smaller stuff made, but also to connect like you do? Because, I mean, I go through. The first convention I went to was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I met so many actors there, but made so many friends, and that just grows, you know. But I feel when you go to a movie premiere, that's not quite the same vibe with older actors, to say. Sorry, long question. You get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those two things absolutely have different intents behind them. And also, I would say an environment like this and the safe space it creates, there's a different demographic, whereas like film festivals do tend to be, I see a lot of older people. So I don't know, in terms of sort of, yeah, getting content moving and connecting with those people on a creative level, like this sort of environment and melting pot makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not sure that answered your question.
Yeah, I think, as you said, they're just different purposes. When you're at a film festival, usually it's, you know, really about promoting the film versus here where it's about, you know, promoting us as human beings. And
And a community.
Yeah.
It's like connecting over a singular point, you know.
Because really, like, film festivals, yes, they're for people to go see films, but really they're for producers to sell their movies.
Oh yeah, it's just a buyer's market.
Yeah, it's just like a fish market. But then with this, it feels more like, you know, we sometimes forget that we make content for an audience, and this feels more like a celebration of that audience, and acknowledging that an audience plays a key role in helping create content as well.
That's what I feel, so thank you very much.
And that's a great way to end this press conference. So With that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all. We hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you.